Welcome to Exhibition. And hello, Sian Watson.
Hello, Richard. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you, and great to see you there in your studio, which we'll talk about shortly. But your exhibition is Morphological at M Contemporary in Sydney. And before we actually start to talk about the works in the exhibition, let's just explain that there are, in physical terms, two different types of forms that you're using in this exhibition. Can you explain the different materials, the two physically different materials?
Yeah, so the materials that I'm using for this exhibition are steel and concrete, which is what I use most frequently within my practice. And so that's building up an armature and then overlaying that with a flow field grout, which is a high strength grout, a bit like concrete. And then in addition to that, I've also supplemented the show with a collection of small bronzes, which is exciting because I really enjoy that process.
Well, it's quite a collection of work, but what it does most particularly throughout the whole collection, whether the works are the larger concrete and armature works or the smaller bronze works, they all take us back to prehistoric times. Can you explain that prehistory link that you've woven into this exhibition?
So what I've been really interested in, and for a while now, and I've really pushed it and developed it within this show, is taking these two-dimensional pictographs and petroglyphs that we see throughout history, and bringing them back into the three-dimensional world. And so often these fantastic imagery has these three legs, or you only see like segments, or they've been fused with other drawings that have been overlaid during time. And so what I've been really interested in within this show is pulling that two-dimensional into the three-dimensional world. Again, carrying on with my own personal style as well. But that's what really excites me about this show.
So you're talking here about what people might perhaps be familiar with as cave paintings, essentially. Some of those really ancient depictions of animal life or hunting scenes.
Yeah, definitely. And so it's seen throughout all parts of the world, and they all have such unique styles. And so some of the imagery that I've been working with for this show comes from Africa, other parts come from North America. So these rock art works that it can be seen on these often cave walls, I've been using across the world sort of this inspiration and then drawing them back into the three-dimensional world.
How has your interest in this process begun, and how have you researched the kind of images that you've finally decided to turn into three-dimensional forms?
So something that I'm really interested in when I'm looking at these images is the energy and movement that are captured within these prehistoric artworks. And so that's something that when I am selecting artworks, I often look for this movement and energy, and also these unique stances that are often seen. So there's a couple of works that are in this collection that have quite ambiguous in form, and which one's the head and where's the legs, and so I quite like that. And then often I develop from those prehistoric artworks and rock cave paintings. I then draw more from them, and so through my own drawings and little stencils and outlines, and so I'm not so much working directly from those prehistoric drawings. I'm manipulating them myself and really accentuating anything that I find particularly inspiring, such as the three legs. Most of my works in this show have three legs, and sort of developing more from this awkwardness and ambiguity, but also capturing that movement and energy within the works too.
You mentioned a sense of ambiguity sometimes, and let's look at a particular work that has fascinating form, but it is slightly ambiguous in some ways, pachyderm.
Yeah,
Can
so
you kind of guide us through the making of and the inspiration for that work?
So that artwork is inspired from the San people from Africa. They're one of the earliest known tribes, from my understanding, and they have this fantastic imagery of what I perceive to be a hippopotamus. But it could be a range of different things. And this artwork is something that I've actually is new to me in a sense that it is quite voluminous and quite rounded in form. Often my figures are tall and extended with these long legs. So this is something that is quite new in style. And that was something that I saw this, it was in like an old textbook. So I've been collecting a lot of these old textbooks that have these like little black and white images. And I saw it in this textbook and I went, that's beautiful. I've got to sort of develop something from there. And so I did a little quick sketch and sort of, but this work is probably the strongest in similarity to what the actual original image looked like.
Morphological, there is actually a work entitled Morphological. Again, give us a little bit of a background there. And if my recollection serves correctly, that actually does have 4 legs rather than just 3.
Yeah, definitely. So it's actually Morpho, which is this creature that stems a little bit like a bull or a horse. So it's quite again, voluminous body. And once I'd made the first fatter work, I was like, oh, this is something exciting and new. I'll have to carry on this. And so that one was not so much made directly from any specific prehistoric artwork, but more along the concept of how the technicalities of a lot of these artworks, they often carry these tiny heads and these big voluminous legs and body. So what I've done here is create these artwork, this Morpho with this big fat voluminous body, quite cow-like, but my sister, she has a horse and she just thinks it's an exact depiction of a very overweight horse. So look, I think there's inspiration that's come from everywhere in regards to that, but it was just more exploration of the form itself, and that's why Morphological as an exhibition title name is what I'm really trying to understand and look at the form and the energy that can be captured within these shapes.
Ancient 3 is another one we'll just have a look at in terms of its form. There seems a certain sort of formality in the grandness or the structure of this form. Take us through that a little.
Yeah, so when I was developing a lot of these shapes, particularly the ancient series, I was really interested in capturing line and energy, and so making sure that as the artwork, when I was building the armature, and that's where it usually all starts, is capturing and creating linking lines and circles within the artwork, and so that your eye sort of follows around as if you'd look at a painting and those sorts of things, and creating that circular or lineal angles that really draws the eye in and around.
What is the process of building the armatures for these sculptures?
So it all starts with welding up a steel armature. So I use steel rod, just mild steel, and then weld up little bits and pieces. And so I often, just angle grind and cut little bits off, and then hand bend them all over an anvil and a vise, so that because of the thinness of the rod, they're quite manipulative when they're so thin, but once you start joining them all together, it creates a rigid form. Once I've had a form that I'm really enjoying and really liking, which sometimes doesn't look anything like my original drawing. They really develop along the way. But once I am comfortable with an armature, what I do is I cover it in like a fine mesh usually like a mouse mesh, and then develop mix up this flow field grout or concrete until it's a good consistency, and you can get all sorts of textures happening along there, and that can be seen in this exhibition as well. But and then you just apply it to the surface and build it up into the form that you desire. And then the way that I finish a lot of these artworks is with a paint, like mostly outdoor paints, as sculpture is large and takes up a lot of my studio space, as you can see around me. So I often try and keep as many of them outside as well, in between exhibitions. So that's where my storage is. And yeah, so I pop all of them with a painted surface, and so that they're durable and long lasting.
Some of the works are very evocative of a particular type of animal in motion. And I'm thinking of, as an example, Pensive Lines, which very much has that dog-like characteristic, but in motion quite realistically. Is that actually still a prehistoric reference, or is that part of your own imagination coming to the fore?
That work particularly is part of my own imagination. So my dog often hangs out in my studio as well, and so sometimes that feeds very much into my artwork. So that one again comes in under the using the prehistoric imagery, but drawing back upon my own experiences and ideas. And so that one, yes, is based on my own dog. And just, yeah, trying to capture that energy is something that I'm really interested in, and creating these evocative artworks.
We've talked quite a lot about the construction methods for the larger works with the armatures and the building of the concrete grout material around them. But for the smaller bronze works, there is a very specific production process for you. Can you guide us through that, please?
Yeah, bronze is a very extensive process. So often I make up the objects in wax first. As you can see, I've got little objects made in wax, and then from there I have invested them. So I send them off to a foundry. They put them on like a runner system, which is a bit like a plumbing system. Because what happens is when they're invested and covered in like a plaster mold, you put them in a kiln, and for the kiln melts out all the wax through your plumbing system, so that when you have finished that kiln process, which is often 3 days in a kiln, you pull it out, turn it upside down, and you have a void that has this plumbing system in it attached to your artwork. And then you pour your molten bronze in, and that bronze fills up through the plumbing system, which allows air to be released, so you don't end up with air pockets within a bronze mold. And then you are able to smash this bronze figure out of this plaster mold, often with a sledgehammer, and you end up with your object in solid bronze. And then at that stage, you're probably about halfway through, because the process then requires each of the bronzes to be cut off this little plumbing system, and then any joins or anything needs to be chased back, so making sure that that form and that surface looks similar, where you've angle grinded something off. And then you need to either sandblast or brush back all of that surface, because otherwise the bronze itself will actually has a small discoloration on the surface. So you've got to make it all look the same, which is nice and shiny, goldy bronze, and then you can patina it, and you can patina it in any color. For this exhibition, I've decided I have one larger bronze, and I've left that pretty much as it is. It's got a little bit of wax coloration to the surface, and the other ones have been patinated with like a Livermore color.
You have already had in your career some public art acquisitions for sculptural works in public places. How has that come about?
Yeah, so when I graduated from the ANU in 2015, I was a recipient of a public art commission by Crafted Development. So they funded and the artwork that now sits in Hobart Place, which is this elongated horse-like form. And that work, was really exciting. And that one was installed in February 2020. So I just got it in there. And then I also have another public artwork, which is going into Mudgee in the next couple of months as well. So that one is a little bit more ambiguous in form. So I'll have to link you a photo to that one.
Well, congratulations on those public art commissions and placements, and thank you for sharing your exhibition with us today. Sian Watson, thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Richard.